Hey, Dental Nachos crew, it's Paul, Dr. Nacho. I'm here with one of our key resources and sponsors and a friend of mine, a great person to talk to during this crisis, Gary Salman of Black Talon Security. He's going to help us understand some of the security challenges we may have with our team and us working remotely, and also something he and his team have put together, an emergency black box for you to know about and a takeaway point here. I'm going to turn it over to him because he has a lot of information to share, and I'll interject along the way. Gary, thanks for being here.
Hey, no problem, Paul. Great to see you again, as always. So thanks so much. I know there's a lot of challenging things going on right now, so I want to provide you with some, real positive things that you can do to help, facilitate, potentially keeping your office moving along in these challenging times. So the first thing is remote access to your system. Right? I've talked to numerous of your colleagues, or a number of your colleagues out there, and they said, hey, I've got team members that are sitting at their homes. Right, they're logging into my system. They're maybe trying to reschedule patients, process claims, try and keep some money moving around, etc. How do I do this safely, right? How do I not bring risk into my office? So I thought fantastic opportunity to help you guys out with this. So there are various types of technologies out there that enable you to remotely access your office, right? So let's just say, for instance, Mary is your billing person and she sits at the front, right? And she wants to continue doing billing, or maybe she's also going to handle scheduling as well. So she wants to remote in from her home computer to the office. Gotcha. So she's basically taking control of her desk computer, at the office. So there's a couple types of technologies out there. There's one that I really recommend you don't use. And a lot of the IT vendors are implementing this technology because it's free and it's simple. But if it's not configured properly and it's not secured properly, it presents you with a tremendous amount of risk, and it's called Remote Desktop Protocol, also known as RDP. It's a product from Microsoft.
I'm going to put that in the chat here. So Remote Desktop Protocol represents some challenges and risks that you might be taking that you don't want to be taking.
100%.
Gotcha.
Right? A lot of IT vendors will just flip this on because it's a quick, easy solution. But if it's not secured properly, what's going to happen is you're going to walk back into your office and find out that you got hit with ransomware. The reality is that hackers are, basically waiting for all these businesses to turn on this remote access, and they have very sophisticated tools that are designed to breach these types of remote systems. So I'd recommend you stay away from RDP unless your IT vendor can absolutely assure you that they've properly secured it. And even so, I really recommend you don't use it. There's just too many issues with it. Gotcha. There are some really good products out there that don't cost a lot of money, and we're not endorsing any of these, but these are just so you can do a little research. Something like Go to My PC or Log Me In, right? These are technologies that allow you to remotely control a computer at your office. I also recommend you get the business versions of these products. The free ones typically do not enable you to turn on things like multi-factor authentication. So when you log into that computer in your office, it sends you a text message saying, hey, Dave, is this you trying to log into Mary's computer? And you just, accept it on your cell phone.
I want to interject with, as I'm home during this crisis, eating like a college student, trying to figure out how to work out. I think one of the things I like to interject and my team put in the comments, and also one of our themes is, okay, everyone can embrace this. If you gained 150 pounds tomorrow, and you had to lose it, the right answer wouldn't be to stop eating food. It would be to eat the right types of food. So I know a lot of us out there are scared and worried. We've had our businesses shut off, but it doesn't mean for us to stop utilizing services to help us get back on track. So I just think it's an important point. I know my dental mind people, they say, people who gain 150 pounds say, okay, I'm not going to eat it all. That's not sustainable. It can put you at more risk of gaining more weight. So I think it's really important for people to realize that now is the time to look at now go to food, your pizza pie of services. Let's say it's cut into 16 slices, and see which slices you can pause, but there's definitely ones you don't want to pause, because that's what's going to get you back in business, whether that's 2 weeks, 2 months from now.
Absolutely. And just to let everyone know, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to share with you some additional security measures. So grab a pen and paper, do whatever you need to do, jot these hot topics down, really tips, not topics. And it'll help secure your network. The last thing we want to see happen, and this is why we're trying to share all this information, is to turn one situation into another, right? Don't turn on this stuff and then walk into your office and find another bad situation where your system's been compromised. All right, so remote access, really important for business continuity to kind of keep the cash flow going as much as possible. I know for some of you that might be challenging, etc. The next thing I want to talk to you about is what we call the emergency box, right? It's kind of like pull here in case of a fire. So we deal with cyber attacks all over the US, from small little practices up to very large multi-specialty practices, et cetera. And I would say in 99% of these cases, the doctors, the administrators had no plans in place to deal with any type of event. And this doesn't have to be just a ransomware attack or a cyber attack. It could be a fire, it could be a flood, right? We all know and have colleagues that have had their offices flooded out for whatever reason. You're in a building, the floor above floods and it drains into your office, et cetera. So what do you do in these types of emergencies? Well, typically what we see is the deer in headlights syndrome, right? The administrator is like, I don't know where that stuff is. And the doctor's like, I thought you knew, right? And it's a huge problem. And what ultimately happens is it causes a lot of delays related to the bringing of your practice back online. All right, so let's kind of walk through a couple of these things that I think are invaluable items that you have to kind of keep in this emergency box. And this emergency box could literally just be a cardboard box that sits on a shelf with all this information in it, or in a safe, depending on, that's what I'd prefer, put it in some type of fireproof safe. All right, so first thing, passwords. So let's start critically thinking about this. Right now, if your IT company went silent.
This is too good. I'm just going to stop my video for a minute because I want to live tweet some of this. So if you don't see my face, try not to. This is just so outstanding. I want to share with more than Nacho audience. I'm going to just turn it over to you for a minute so you can just keep going uninterrupted without my face on there for a second.
All right, I'll hold.
Go ahead.
All right, thanks. So a couple things that I want you to start thinking about. If something happened to your IT vendor, and you couldn't get them on the phone for various reasons, they got hit with a cyber attack as well. Or maybe you can't get anyone on the phone for whatever reason. Do you have the passwords to all of your computers? Do you have the administrative passwords to your server, to your workstation, to your firewall, to your local backup, to your cloud backup, to software? Because if a company like ours comes in to try and help you recover from an event and you don't have those passwords, it makes our job extremely difficult, and ultimately it makes it more difficult and increases the amount of time for recovery for your practice. So that means an extra day or two that you can't see patients and take x-rays and do things like that. So get all the passwords, the usernames for these various devices, write them down on a piece of paper, put them in a spreadsheet, don't save it on your computer, right? Put it on a piece of paper and lock it in a safe. And then the next thing that has to go into your emergency box is installation discs. Do you have the DVDs for your practice management software, your imaging? A lot of people use, payroll software like QuickBooks, etc. Time clock, text messaging applications, anything that might have an installation disc. You have to get the latest versions of those discs and put them in the emergency box. The next thing is software license numbers. Most software has some type of licensing requirement around it. You can't just throw some software in and have it magically work, right? Because that's how they control piracy. So make sure you have all these license numbers. Then another really important thing, put together a list of every single vendor you deal with, your practice management, your imaging, consultants, text messaging applications, marketing folks, etc. Get their phone numbers down on paper, their direct lines, their cell phone numbers, their email addresses. Then see if you can get managers at the various companies, right? So your imaging, your practice management companies. See if you can get direct contacts for them. Another incredible resource that we found is your sales rep, or in this case, most likely reps. Make sure you have the rep's phone number, their cell phone, their email. So in the event you can't get a hold of someone at that company, which is very often the case during some of these larger scale events, call your sales rep and be like, hey, Dave or Michelle, I have a problem here, right? Our system is down. I can't get a hold of anyone in support. Can you please call one of the managers and have them call me back right away? And we've had a tremendous amount of success with that. Another thing is support contracts. We've got into practices where they haven't had a support contract in 2 years for an imaging device or software. And when we try and get the system back up and running and support's required, they call the company and they're like, hey, I'm so sorry, but you don't have a valid support contract. Now, I'm not saying everyone has to go and turn on all their support contracts. I know there's a lot of stuff going on right now, but make sure you have or know the process for handling that. Some of these larger companies, they're not going to turn your support back on the second they receive payment. There's a process that they have to go through, right? And be able to provide you with a support number. Okay. Here's another really important tip. Print out your schedule for the next week or two, right? If you have some type of disaster in your office, once again, a fire, flood, cyber event, how nice would it be to have a hard copy of your schedule so you can start calling patients, as opposed to all these patients showing up at your office and you have no idea, who they are or what they're potentially there for. Okay, so, do that. Another important thing is a hardware inventory sheet. Your IT vendor should be able to provide this to you. It's a listing of every single computer and device that is attached to your network. Final key point for your emergency box: paper backups. What do we mean? Well, you have encounter forms. Some people call them super bills, consent forms, right? Any type of document that you are now filling out in your computer system, in your charting software, in your electronic medical records, have a hard copy of that, even if it's just enough to get you through a week, or the originals so you can throw them on a copying machine and make copies. I can tell you for a fact that when we respond to some of these attacks and these practices are down for many days, they don't have any paper. They don't even know where to start. They're like, oh, everything's digital now. I don't even have paper anymore. Well, I can tell you that can save you. Okay, so try and do that. A lot of hospitals, as part of their emergency plans now, is they literally have tens of thousands of sheets of pre-printed paper so people can chart on, right? As opposed to them running around and sending people out to get paper and pens and pencils, etc. Have that as part of your emergency kit. We talked a little bit about, or I didn't talk yet, but backups. It's really important that you have a disconnected backup, right? This is kind of like an old school device that can allow you to store multiple copies of your backup on it. It has to be encrypted. But what we've seen in emergency situations is that hard drive that is sitting on your dining room table that you take home every night may be the difference between getting back up and running quickly and not getting back up and running at all, or taking weeks. Okay, yes, I get it. Some of you are putting some pretty expensive backup solutions in your office, and there is some amazing technology out there. But I can tell you, right, this stuff is not foolproof. If the device is connected to your network, it's potentially a target of the hackers. Okay, so think about that. This $200, $300 device that you take home with you every night could be the difference of costing you, a day or two of outage versus weeks. So those are the types of things I would love for you to start thinking about. It is part of having, a disaster plan within the practice. A disaster plan is actually part of being HIPAA compliant, but I can tell you this is something that's really good. And everything I described to you, minus maybe that hard drive backup, it doesn't cost you a penny. Okay, so now while you have some downtime and you're trying to figure out, hey, how can I make myself better? How can I make my practice better? How can I set myself up for success, to try and, mitigate these types of things? Take the time, right, and start gathering this information together and create that box. So Paul, any other questions?
I mean, that was so perfect. I was writing a lot of stuff down. I want to put this, make it its own post in Nachos, because this is the type of stuff that keeps you alive and surviving. And, I think we're going to have at 3:30 today, one of my close friends talk about how to get through some of this and some mental exercises and stress exercises, because you feel like you're just, under attack right now by this thing you can't even see, which is probably an experience you have with dentists all the time with cyber attacks in general.
Right.
This has kind of wrapped its arms around our entire practice. And I think for you to deliver this to us, we just really appreciate it, because it makes you feel more, when you have information, you feel more secure. When you have a treatment plan, you feel more secure. When you have plays drawn up by a coach, you feel more secure. You still have to go out and run them. So I think that's really just perfect take-home point. So just to review, if I was sitting here as someone who owns a practice with 20 employees, 2 practices, that is me. So that is me. One, use a remote access system that's not going to put you in jeopardy. 2, work on your emergency black box. I like it. I could put it right next to all my home run baseballs in my attic there.
Exactly.
There's 2 baseballs. No, but and if people want to utilize, as you're an awesome key resource and sponsor, and you're the type of person that's here to help at this time, just like teledentistry. How do people reach out to you if they want to connect with you more over this time?
Sure. Best way you can reach me direct is Gary at Black Talon, TALON security.com. Hit me up on email, hit our Facebook page. You can search Black Talon Security, hit me on LinkedIn. I agree with Paul. Whatever we can do to help this community right now, that's what it's all about. Let's be humans. Let's help one another out through these trying times. and kind of boost everyone up, you know, and you know, show some leadership here. So
I like that. Let's be humans. It's a good message. Awesome. Staying around with me, Gary. Dental Nachos crew will be back on at 3:30 p.m. Special guest today for our COVID exit, Dr. Maggie Gustin, who's awesome, one of my close friends. We're going to go over a lot of things, talk about things, new bills passed today. As I am not a bill expert, but we're just going to talk about some of the things affecting dentistry, including what you shared here, Gary. I'm going to do a top 10 rundown of that. So thanks so much.
You got it. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.